Welcome back, everybody. We're here for episode 7 of North of the Six. We have a fun-filled episode today. We've got 4 topics to discuss today. I'm Brad. This is Mike.
Thanks again for joining us, guys. We're going to get into a few different topics today. Before we get into it, I wanted to give a shout-out to Mike Weir. He won on the PGA Champions Tour last week. He's 50 years old now, so he's playing pretty much full-time on the PGA Tour Champions. It was his first win in over 13 years. I was finishing up high school when he last won, so he's a grinder. He's stuck with it, so a shout-out to Mike Weir.
Yeah, congratulations to Mike Weir. It's great for this country to have Canadian get back on top of the golf world, certainly. So amongst that, there's lots going on in the sports world right now, and the number one topic that we've been requested a lot is what's our view on Aaron Rodgers, the legendary Green Bay Packer quarterback who won MVP last year. Question is, will Aaron Rodgers be a Green Bay Packer come week 1 amidst rumors of him being unhappy there?
This is a double Jeopardy question. Who is 100% not coming back to the Green Bay Packers next year? Answer, Aaron Rodgers. Correct. There's no chance he's coming back. The last couple of weeks is just kind of magnified everything that's gone on for the past couple of years. I think the biggest downfall for the Green Bay Packers was not giving him any offensive weapons in the draft. Sure, they had Devontae Adams. They drafted Aaron Jones in the 4th round. He's been a good addition to the offense the last couple of years. But Aaron Rodgers specifically came out and said, I need more weapons on offense. And they didn't surround him with better receivers, even tight end in that aspect. Robert Tonyan's been okay. But they could have upgraded both of those positions, and they didn't. And again, drafting a cornerback this year, there's rumors he might end up in Denver. I could totally see that happening, but I think he's completely gone.
I agree with you. I think he's going to be traded at some point. We don't know when. It could be tomorrow. It could be June. Heck, it might be during training camp. We don't know. I don't see how he could come back to this just after everything that's been going on in the news. And just along with that, the Green Bay Packers drafted Jordan Love last year. He was their first-round pick last year. Are they going to let him sit another 2 or 3 years? Even if they let him sit 1 year, Aaron Rodgers must know the end is coming, unfortunately, right? And I think 99% certainty that he's going to be traded before week 1. I think there's a few teams out there that would love to have his services. Rumor has it is the Denver Broncos could be in on him. Yeah. They didn't utilize their first-round pick to take, a Justin Fields or even try to trade up to try to get a Trey Lance, a quarterback. So they've got a great roster, but still have question marks at the quarterback spot. So it leaves me to believe that something is rumbling, right now. And I think a trade could be happening in the very near future. The New Orleans Saints could be interested too. The San Francisco 49ers, I think, could be interested. The Las Vegas Raiders. Heck, the Cleveland Browns were even just rumored to be in on Aaron Rodgers. So I think his future as a Green Bay Packer is very much in doubt.
Yeah, and I think he's got a really good chance. You mentioned several of these teams. There's tons of destinations he could end up, and I don't think Green Bay is going to be it starting next season. Although he was looking pretty sharp at the Kentucky Derby this past weekend with his new wife, Shailene Woodley, an actress. So, yeah, he's looking sharp at the boys at the Derby.
Yeah, so sorry, Packers fans. We don't see him coming back. And I don't think he can come back. If he were to come back, what will be the response, especially if fans are allowed in the stands come the 2021 season? I just don't see it happening. So we'll see what happens, but I think a mega trade is going down at some point. Switching to the NBA, we're going to do a little local talk here with the Toronto Raptors. It's been a little bit of a miserable season. Mike and I recognize that, and I'm sure there's millions of Raptors fans out there realize that the playoffs are very dim at this point, but a bright spot has happened. Rookie point guard Malachi Flynn was named the Rookie of the Month for the month of April. And the question we got is, going into next season, assuming the Raptors are back playing their home games in Toronto, can Malachi Flynn be that guy to lead the bench unit?
Malakant. He's an 8th or 9th guy on a good team. He's probably the 3rd point guard you want coming off the bench. He's been a nice story this year with additional minutes. And again, a huge congrats for being Rookie of the Month. You do have to credit him for that. But if he were to lead a bench unit next year, he'd have to step his game up. He'd have to shoot better. He's shooting under 40% or close to it for a point guard. That's just not going to get it done. And I just look at the guys around him. Like, if you're telling me the bench is going to be similar to what it was this year, it's Malachi Flynn, it's Chris Boucher, even like a Gary Trent Jr., that bench doesn't scare me very much.
Well, here's the thing with him. I think we just have to see how he'll finish out the season. And yes, he's technically the third point guard on the depth chart, but Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry are both starters. So, and if Kyle Lowry doesn't come back next year, then we're looking at that depth. I think he very well could be the guy. If Kyle Lowry's not back next year, Fred VanVleet will obviously be slated as the number one point guard, but then who's your number two? They traded Terrence Davis away, right, at the trade deadline, and their guard depth is a little bit in question, right?
Yeah, it's stinky for sure, but I don't want Malachi Flynn. If Malachi Flynn's the first guy coming off the bench next year, then we're in a lot of trouble.
Okay, I don't mean he has to be the first guy coming off the bench, but can he be that guy to lead the second unit? What I mean by that is, can he be what Fred VanVleet was 3 years ago, playing with Pascal Siakam and Jakob Poeltl, like kind of lead that second unit? I'm not saying he has to be the option, but can he be that guy?
I still don't think he can. That is just me being honest with what I've seen from him so far. Again, he probably has room to grow, and again, coming off a nice recognition from the NBA, but I don't see him as that guy.
No, I don't know. 12.5 points per game, almost 5 assists and 4 rebounds per game on a team in which, he's had multiple different teammates all season long. I think the Raptors they broke a team record, I think, this year for the most different starting lineups on their roster this year. So I think they got to at least give the kid an opportunity. But then again, you could be right. If the Raptors win the draft lottery come springtime, then that changes everything, right? They could be looking at a kid like Cade Cunningham, or certainly with trades or roster moves that could happen throughout the offseason. Heck, Masai Ujiri, we don't know his future with the team, right? Yeah. So it's really hard to say. The thing is, though, Malachi Flynn, I think if he just improves that jump shot just a little bit, if he can get into the 40%, 42, 43% range, he could be an okay two-way player in this league.
Yeah, like the okay again to me is like a third or fourth option off the bench. Like if you say lead the bench next year, I'd hope it'd be someone they bring in, or maybe they re-sign Gary Trent. He's that top scorer off the bench, kind of like a Lou Williams used to be.
Okay. Well, let's just see how the season ends. And again, lots of question marks in Raptor land. We'll just have to see what happens throughout the summer. Going back to the NFL, the draft happened, and now teams pretty much at this point are finalized. Their rosters are pretty much, this is what all 32 NFL teams are going to look like come training camp in July, give or take a few roster cuts here or there. Pretty much the foundations for all 32 teams are in place. So we want to give our winners and losers of specifically the NFL draft. I'm going to start. If I had to choose just one team, I give an 8+2. It's the Chicago Bears. And why? They totally redeemed themselves after a poor free agency period in which we thought Andy Dalton was going to be their quarterback. No, they swung a big move at the draft and moved up 9 spots, doing that trade for the New York Giants to snag Justin Fields, who I think is a dark horse quarterback. I think he could be really good in this league. And you know what? It's going to get Bears fans excited again, get that whole fan base up and roaring again. They haven't had a really dynamic quarterback in quite some time. And then not to mention their second round pick, they drafted Taven Jenkins, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma State, who can immediately start in at right tackle or even left tackle to help protect him. And the fact they combine that with already an elite defense they have with Khalil Mack leading the charge, this team could be, I think they could be a sleeper for NFC North champions. I know, I might be going ahead of myself with this one, but going back to what we were talking about earlier, if Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay, I think that could put Chicago Bears in the driver's seat to potentially win a division in 2021.
I've got Chicago very high on my list as well. I think they did a tremendous job. And I think they're still trying to cheer people up during COVID times because they are still saying that Andy Dalton is their starting quarterback come week 1. I don't know like how that guy is still relevant. But anyways, Fields, you mentioned the massive potential, the massive upside, and a guy like Jenkins who's NFL ready right away. So yeah, big ups to Chicago for the draft. I'm going to keep going with the New York Giants. I've been high on them in the offseason. They traded down for something they very rarely do, but they grabbed Kadarius Toney. I think he's going to be like a speedier version of Golden Tate, a good slot receiver, good possession skills. So I really like what they did there to help Daniel Jones and the newly acquired the Kenny Golladay. So I really like what they're doing. Again, you got Saquon Barkley coming back as well. And then they went out and got Azeez Ojulari in the second round. They're shoring up that defense. With a guy like Blake Martinez, the linebacker position, the guy's a tackling machine. The defense is starting to look a little bit better too. So I'm liking a lot what the Giants did in the draft.
Yeah, I can't certainly deny that. The Giants look like they could be a pretty decent team going into 2021. Again, I so call it the NFC least, so they could win that division with an 8-9 record. Oh, but again, it's
happened before.
But you're right. They're a team that, if they're healthy, they could surprise some people, right? Just the Giants have been so irrelevant the last several years now. It's hard to put massive faith in them. However, again, they're in the NFC East, so anything can happen in that division. With the losers of the NFL draft, I feel bad for our fans down in the South, but the Houston Texans, I gave them the worst grade in free agency. I'm going to give them the worst grade in the draft. There's a few other teams I was going to throw in there, potentially the New Orleans Saints. I was impressed with their draft, but my God, the Houston Texans. First of all, they didn't have a first-round pick or a second-round pick from that disastrous trade they did. I believe it was to get Larry Tunsil, who was he's a good left tackle for them, but they paid a ransom fee to get him. So that cost them their first and second-round picks this year in the draft. And you know what they used their first pick with? In the third round, they selected Stanford quarterback Davis Mills. So what do you think is going to happen with Deshaun Watson? I mean, they also signed quarterback Tyrod Taylor to the roster. It just sounds like there's going to be a very sad ending with Deshaun Watson.
I don't think Deshaun Watson's playing anywhere next year.
You don't go that far, eh?
Yeah.
So you think it's just a matter of time that they'll either try to trade him to try to get something, or do you think teams it'll be a PR nightmare, they'll want to stay away and
yeah, that might have to be a conversation we have for a whole other episode. We could really dive deep into that.
Yeah.
Speaking of losers, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you want to know about what's going on with Deshaun Watson, just search on Google and you'll find out what's going on. Again, like Mike said, this could be a whole episode talking about the unfortunate situation, what's going on with him. But anyway, that's my loser. It's just the Houston Texans. They also traded, I think, 3 picks to draft Michigan wideout Nico Collins. And what's the point? Like, are you rebuilding or are you trying to do some patchwork? Because I think if they want to fully rebuild, wouldn't you want to get as much draft capital back as you can? I don't know why they would do a trade like that in the mid rounds. So I gave them a D- for their draft.
Yeah, insert dumpster fire gif at any time for Houston. That's basically what it's been the last couple of years, pretty much. I'm going to go with the team we mentioned earlier, the Denver Broncos. And you mentioned their lack of the ability to go up in the draft and get a guy, right, like Justin Fields. They even had a chance for technically like a Mac Jones, right? They could have swung some deal. They could have done something, right? And they kind of just stand pat. Like, do they trust in Drew Lock enough? That's kind of the question you have to ask in Denver. Do you trust in Drew Lock enough? And right now, I don't. From what I saw last year, yeah. So I don't know. I don't think they addressed their need. I like Pat Surtain. I do. I think he's talented, but they didn't address their need there. And they didn't get enough O-line help up front.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Like Drew Lock, I saw so many games last year. Just within a second, he started scrambling out of the pocket. No protection. So they didn't do enough to shore up that O-line. So I'm giving Denver a D.
So that's fair. But does that not lead you to believe that they're trying to go after Aaron Rodgers?
And that's what the rumor is, yeah. I could see it happening. What's that package going to look like in return? Is a guy like Drew Lock involved?
I don't know. Or I'm hearing 3 first-round picks, 3 first, 2 seconds, just a bunch of draft capital. Because I think the Denver Broncos, you're right, they've got a good roster, but their draft was very questionable. And John Elway leads the charge there. If they want to win now, they got Patrick Mahomes they have to go against in that division, right? So you think they got to get a quarterback. Anyway, going to our final topic for today. I know you fans are out there. I know a few of you personally. The New York Knicks haven't been relevant in my entire lifetime. I'm pretty sure maybe even longer than that. But they've won, as of May 5th, 12 of their last 13 games. Are they an NBA playoff contender?
No, they're not. They've been playing well lately, as you've mentioned. They've had a nice little run. Julius Randle's playing off the charts, out of this world. Derrick Rose is playing like he's 22, not 32. Throwing back the clock big time there to his MVP season, that caliber. And RJ Barrett has been amazing too, shooting a really high percentage, really efficient. But to me, it comes down in the playoffs, it just comes down to depth. And after those 3 that I've mentioned, I'm not scared by anybody on that roster. Like Nerlens Noel is kind of a crash and bang kind of guy. He can get you some rebounds. But that bench as a whole, I'm not intimidated. If I'm one of the top teams in the East, I'm not scared of the Knicks. They might push a team 6-7 games in the first round, but I don't think they have enough to make it on.
Oh, I disagree. I think they're not a championship contender, but I think they're certainly a playoff contender. I think they can beat the Atlanta Hawks or a team like that in round 1 and potentially do some damage in round 2, meaning that they could push a team like a Philadelphia 76ers or a Milwaukee Bucks or Brooklyn Nets for that matter to 6 or 7 games. This team, yes, you look at their roster with Julius Randle's played like an all-star this year, averaging 24 and 10. He's played out of his mind this year. RJ Barrett, Canadian, he's been a nice compliment player for them. And Derrick Rose is looking like his former MVP himself. He can come off the bench and drop 20 points in any given night. But yes, their roster, you look at their starting lineup, yeah, there's Nerlens Noel, Alfred Payton, and Reggie Bullock, I think. Yeah, it's kind of like the island of misfit toys, but it seems to work. They're winning ball games. I think the biggest difference, the more I think about it, Tom Thibodeau being their coach, I think they finally found a coach. They've gone through so many over the years. I remember Lenny Wilkins was coaching them, Larry Brown, Derek Fisher, Jeff Van Gundy. It's just the list goes on and on. And Tom Thibodeau's been
Spike
proven.
Lee probably at some point.
Yeah. I was going to say Tom Thibodeau's proven to be a very good defensive coach. This team is ranked 4th in NBA defensive efficiency. I think he could be a candidate for Coach of the Year. So I think, yeah, it's going to be a real stretch for them to get to round 3 of the NBA playoffs. But I definitely think they could win a playoff round for the first time in several years.
Yeah, Thibodeau he's a good defensive mind coach, and he's had some success in the past. But again, I think they go deep in the first round, and that's about it. And then maybe if they make some off-season moves, get a little more talent around that bench out, they can go further. But they have been a nice story this year for sure.
Hey, they beat some good teams in there. They beat, unfortunately, our Toronto Raptors twice, but they also beat the Dallas Mavericks and the Lakers during that streak. I don't know. I think in the Atlanta Hawks, they're very inconsistent. I think that's going to be the 4-5 matchup. We're going to make one quick prediction here. If that was the matchup, who would you take?
See, I like Atlanta in 7.
See, I'd like the Knicks in 7.
Interesting. All right, we'll have to see what happens then. Anyways, thanks a lot, guys, for joining us again. Episode 7 already of North of the Sticks. We really appreciate the support so far.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us on our social channels. We can't wait to do this again. See you soon.